Hello there and welcome. In this episode we're looking at marine tanks. More specifically, how easy are marine tanks to keep and how basic can you set them up. Now on the internet, if you read too deeply into reef forums, you'll come to the conclusion that only the most genius fish keepers can keep marine tanks and that they're the hardest thing on the planet to do. Well, it couldn't really be further from the truth. I think there's a lot of elitism in marine fish keeping and it can scare newcomers to the hobby. Now this particular marine tank is a real basic setup. I've done it purely just to grow some macroalgae in here, so there aren't any fish. There's the odd snail and hermit crab wandering around, but this is set up purely for the growth of this macroalgae. Now, because I'm not sporting any fish in here, I've done it as basic as I possibly can, recycling old equipment from tropical fish tanks and using it on this marine tank. That being said, I could quite easily keep some fish and corals in here without any problems. So equipment wise, to keep a marine tank, you really only need the same sort of equipment you need to keep a freshwater tropical tank, that being a filter, some heating, some lighting and some water. In this case, it will be salt water. And that's all that's really on this aquarium. I've got some LED lighting, which I scavenged from my freshwater tank. I've got 2 heaters because I'm in a utility room and it's probably about 5 degrees in this room, so I'm doubling up on heaters just to keep it warm. I've got a surface skimmer just to keep the water clear on the surface, but this is an optional added extra. And filtration wise, I've got a really old Fluval 206, which in fact I had running on a rainbow fish aquarium probably 4 years ago now, and it's doing a fine job of keeping this aquarium clean. Now you may have noticed none of this equipment is actually particularly special, and it's exactly the same really that you'd use on a freshwater tank. Probably the most expensive items on this tank are these LED lights, but you wouldn't need to use them. You can quite easily use T8s or T5s over a marine aquarium, get the right bulbs and your livestock will be pretty happy. So if the equipment on this marine tank is exactly the same as a freshwater tropical tank, then what makes marine keeping so hard? The answer to that is virtually nothing. The only real difference is your water is salty and they take a little bit longer to manage and set up. So let's break those two things down and I'll explain to you why they are actually quite simple things to solve. Firstly, with the salinity of the water. Well, most people's first marine tank is going to be quite small. It's going to be around this size, which is about 100 litres. Now salt water has an interesting property where when it evaporates, it leaves the salt behind and it just gets saltier and saltier as more of the water leaves. Now some people can find that really confusing, and they only find it really confusing until it's explained to them that all you have to do to counteract this problem is just refill it with unsalted water. So on that point, keeping salt water at the right salinity isn't hard at all. The best thing you can do, which I haven't actually done on this tank, is when you fill your tank up initially, just draw a little line on there and then you'll know where your maximum water level is. When it starts evaporating down, you'll actually know you've lost a bit of fresh water and your salinity is going up. So all you need to do is just top it back up to your line and you'll know that you're approximately at the salinity you were when you started. Another thing you should probably get, but you don't have to, is a refractometer, and this will just let you know exactly where your salinity is. When you do water changes, you just remove a small amount of your water and then add back salt water which has been pre-mixed to the right salinity. Easy peasy. It's exactly the same as when you water change a freshwater tank, except you're using salt water instead of fresh. So the next point was about setup time on marine tanks. Marine tanks do take time. Unfortunately, it's the one thing you can't rush on a marine tank. You have to be patient. With a freshwater tank, you could probably set it up and within a couple of weeks you add your fish and away you go. With a marine tank, you're going to be having a long cycling process, and this can take anywhere up to 6 months, depending on the size of the tank and what you add to it. The point is, that isn't a problem. You just have to wait a little bit longer before adding any of your livestock. So patience is key. Now the end point I'm trying to make in this video is the fact that anybody can set up a marine tank. Even if you're completely new to the fish keeping hobby, all you have to do is take your time and take it slow. The equipment is virtually the same. I mean, there is a piece of equipment which I don't have on this tank, and that's a skimmer, and that's because I don't need it because my bio load is low, but also because on tanks that are quite small, less than 125 litres, you don't really need a skimmer. You just have to do water changes fairly regularly and you'll be fine. So So if you want to dabble in the marine side of fish keeping hobby, and you've already got a freshwater tank, literally all you have to do is drain it and clean it and fill it with salt water, maybe a little bit of live rock, and you can just crack on with salt water almost immediately. So I hope this video has vaguely conveyed to you the message I'm trying to get across, which is don't be scared of marine tanks. Don't think they're out of your reach if you've never kept one before. They are accessible to anyone, and there's no real major difference in the care of these aquariums other than the fact that the water's salty. So thank you for watching. I hope this has been helpful. Please remember to like and subscribe to this video if you want more long rambling content of this type. Thank you for watching, and happy fish keeping!